the Sirenhead. It's kind of like the Mummy, Godzilla, and Slender Man got a rescue pet, or a rescue car stereo. I don't know, one of those things. But if you've been on the internet anywhere in 2020, odds are you've run across this colossus. Also, because he's super popular right now, the internet is just cluttered with terrible video games. But amongst the pile of torn up corpses, there are actually a few that don't stink yet. So, to keep all you wonderful people of the internet from having to wade through this large pile yourself, I've picked out a list of my top 8 favorite games starring Sirenhead. Let's get this list going with a little Sirenhead, the Siren's Forest. For you Steam people, you can get this one right off of Steam for free, which is nice. It starts in some dude's house where he's clearly been drinking a little too much and he lost his camera. And having to find your camera is probably one of the most horrific things that happens to you in this game because you're not going to see much Sirenhead, but more on that later. The developer also had this fetish with blinking. There it is. But at least he gave you, for a change, a working car. Oh well, fizzlesticks. What the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, right. So now the car is gone, pretty much turns into your standard walking simulator. Which wouldn't be bad if there was some sort of gameplay, which doesn't happen until the last 10 seconds of the game, so there's no real interaction with any type of monster or challenge. Oh, here comes a blink. Here comes oh, there it was. Blinking. Yes. So once you're done walking and blinking, blinking and walking, and the game is done imitating a walking simulator, you actually get a little bit of Sirenhead, which amounts to running and jumping over logs. Donkey Kong, eat your heart out. But at the end of the game, all it really amounts to is jumping these 7 logs and you win. So that really is what all your gameplay boils down to. Bloop. Here comes another one. Bloop. And one more. Bloop. Victory. That's it, folks. I suppose this wouldn't be bad if to get to this point you didn't have to do 5 minutes of driving. 5 minutes of driving, I'll listen to news radio. 5 minutes of boating. 5 minutes of hiking. What makes it all worth it is this line right here. This is really starting to creep me out. Let's rewind. So 2 minutes ago, this guy finds 3 bodies lying in enough blood to fill a swimming pool. But he's not freaked out till he gets to the top of the hill. Or starting to, at least. Oh, more blinking. All kidding aside, I like the creepy, surreal environment he's created here. Just take a second to listen to the creepy-ass little girl. And just for fun, let's end with a blink. All my jokes aside, the atmosphere of a nightmare is very evident in this game, and I do love it. Number 7 brings us to another self-titled Sirenhead game. I know I'll take some criticism for putting a game that takes 90 seconds to complete ahead of one that takes 15 minutes, but I really love its PS1 style graphics, and some of the things it does very well. Like the sun setting, the birds flying. You also have to love the discovery of the corpse here. It looks like something Lara Croft made into roadkill while she was trying to get her license in 1996. What is that? For me, this version succeeds a touch more just because of the presentation of the beast here. Sure, it's a giant walking polygon, but I think it lives up to the spirit of the monster a little bit better. The number 6 spot goes to another self-titled Sirenhead game. This one was a tough one for me. I feel like there's a better game deeper in here, but I had so much trouble with the hit detection and getting hung up in trees. Overall, I just love the presentation of this piano music in the beginning. It's definitely the most cinematic of the openings and just the most haunting. So I applaud it for that. The gameplay, however, struggles. Here we get a cliche, which will happen with a lot of these Sirenhead games. A flashlight that does absolutely nothing. We move on to another one of my favorite conventions, finding 8 gallons of blood on the floor and reacting to it like it's some coffee that got spilled on the rug. Then we get a confession from the devs here that basically clipping will not be happening and you're going to get stuck on scenery. Alright, let's try it out. Here we go. I'm stuck on trees. What'd they say? Press C. Pressing C. I'm pressing C. I'm pressing left while pressing C. Pressing C again. Pressing C. Trying to walk up the hill. Pressing C. Pressing C. Pressing C. If you're fortunate enough to not get stuck in trees for 20 minutes, you can follow the protagonist Freddy, who after finding all his friends' blood, decides to go for the Rangers to help to find the radio tower out of power. It'll then become a wild goose chase of going from point to point while shooting at Sirenhead. I do, however, like how the game uses radio signals to try to freak you out.
One of the 4 missing friends from the local high school. They say his body was torn apart by some immense force.
I do like the idea of Sirenhead using his radio powers as psychological warfare as the broadcasts get freakier and freakier as you realize they aren't coming from legit sources. Combat, however, is another mixed bag. Here I was able to shoot him and stun him, but that's not always the case. Not even 3 minutes later I have this encounter where I put a bullet in him and he screams, and I'm moving out of his range, but then I get the death sequence, so it's inconsistent at best. But forget all that for a moment, let's think. There comes a part very early on in the story when you realize all your friends are dead and you're just trying to escape, which leaves me with one burning question.
Why can't we just get in the running car?
But hey, what the hell do I know anyway? Overall, I feel like this game deserves higher marks. It seems like it has a lot going on, but there's so much bad clipping and weird hitboxes and inconsistent combat, I just can't find it. Number 5, Sirenhead Awakening. This one is unique in the fact it's the only one that gives you some options before you play the game. There's choice of difficulty and choice of season. Here I'm in a snowstorm of winter. Overall, this game really reminded me of some of the old throwbacks to things like Slender Man and the 8 Pages gameplay where you're collecting stuff while the beast is chasing you. It starts the cliche of the car being broken down, which will kind of run through the thread of a few more of these games as we go down the list. You basically just grab the car parts and try to run back to the car before Sirenhead can come and devour you. I also really like the setting. While the graphics aren't going to rival next-gen consoles, everything is very functional and creepy, like these abandoned train cars or boarded up villages. It just works. Overall, escaping Sirenhead isn't that hard depending on the level of difficulty you have picked. Sometimes the stamina runs out and you're SOL, but for the most part, you can kind of find your way to a shelter and just lay low as he searches, and then make a run for it when it seems like he's far away. First game on the list where I really feel like you can start to form a strategy and understand how Sirenhead works and how to outsmart him. This one is also available on Steam for free, so there's no excuse not to check it out. Number 4, Sirenhead Woods. That gong drop just brings this oppressive feel to this game that never relents. You get this dark music that's very reminiscent to 1970s library goblin style music used by George Romero in all his Night of the Living Dead movies. You also get this style similar to something like Sin City, where you have black and whites mixed with small shades of red and pink and nothing else. It's just an amazing presentation. This game also includes the best gunplay. You're a cop trying to figure out what happened to his sister who lives somewhere out in the woods, and the feel of the 9mm Beretta and the frequency of how quickly you can shoot just feels like good, natural, modern gunplay. It's really fun to finally lay into Sirenhead a little bit. Unfortunately, I've kind of hit all the high points. From here, you just basically follow a blood trail into the woods to find what's left of your sister, and then it's just basically a battle of fighting your way back to the car. Although finding your sister is quite the affair. I can't show all the images, but it is a very grotesque, and it's done very well in the art form. And I'm not saying the gameplay isn't challenging. It's very difficult to keep putting bullets in the Sirenhead and reloading and hiding and finding the blood trail again. But it just becomes a rinse and repeat, and the game can be over in as quick as 10 minutes. Not much more I can add. The game just has a brilliant atmosphere, and considering how much Sirenhead there is out there on YouTube, this just felt like such an original take on the monster and his setting. The only game that has a more original take on Sirenhead than Sirenhead Woods is Sirenhead Field. The game replaces guns with paper airplanes, and replaces the hard grittiness of the other games with a more cartoonish light feel. But through the cartoonish graphics, something about it becomes more macabre and dark. There's a surreal dread to the entire game that really plays out well throughout the course of your gameplay. The protagonist is a teenage boy who finds his parents rather unfortunately missing. From here, the game kind of separates into two segments. One was just basically an Easter egg hunt for your only source of weapons, which are paper airplanes that distract Sirenhead. And the second half sends you into the cornfield to solve puzzles. What I like about the cornfield setting is how much it maintains the nightmare aspect. The corn just closes behind you without apology as you enter, stranding you in there, and you really feel like a rat in a maze. Some people might find this aspect tedious, as the majority of the game is just basically maze running. However, the mechanic at which you evade Sirenhead is very unique. You can turn your flashlight on and off to prevent him from seeing you, but you can also use the paper airplanes to send him running off in the wrong direction. This is also one of the few games that I really like how Sirenhead is size-wise. He's just such a hulking presence over the cornfield. He actually feels every inch of his 40 feet that he's supposed to be. The puzzle system isn't anything to write home about either. You'll see water towers marking 3 clearings in each level where you'll have to solve logic puzzles to basically get 3 keys that will lead you to the exit. Once you've solved the 3 puzzles, then you'll see a heavenly light descending to where the exit is, which makes your maze running quite a bit easier. While most of the puzzles are fairly fun, they're the same every single time you play, so there's only 3 per level, and after solving them the initial time, it just becomes a matter of tedium to do it again. The one challenging wrinkle of the puzzles is that Sirenhead continues to stalk you as you do them. If he does get too close, you'll hear a sound like high violin strings, and then you can just fling a paper airplane that he'll chase like a bat chasing an insect, and you can book it in the opposite direction. Once you have all 3 keys, you can run to the source of the light to discover the exit. The game will of course punk you and make you think Sirenhead got you at the last second, but you'll still wake up in your room in the next day, and that's where things start to get a little more interesting. As you wake up on the second day, you'll find your house starting to change. Rooms that were previously locked will open up, and it'll look a little bit more like a morgue than a house. Waking up in a morgue isn't unsettling enough. The game also uses some small jump scare trips like pigs running and crows flying and even Sirenhead hands reaching out through the field. Aside from Field's amazing atmosphere and uniqueness, it also succeeds on the fact it's very functional. The flashlight has a specific purpose and it works. The paper airplanes distract Sirenhead. You know what you have to do, and you're not getting stuck on trees while you're doing it. The number 2 spot, Sirenhead Retribution, tells the story of the world's most unlucky mechanic who gets called to a ranger station to fix the power, only to find that something is lurking in the woods. The game efficiently uses this opening as a good segment for a tutorial, which isn't too long or invasive, and then shortly after the action starts, as Sirenhead takes your van and heaves it into the trees. Maybe a more interesting game would be watching this guy explain this to his insurance adjuster.
And we covered it November 6, 2009.
Damn you, farmers. So clearly, since my insurance game is not going to fly anymore, the main gameplay basically consists around trying to fix another car, which is done with some variations to the Awakened formula. You basically have 5 locations on your map that continue to shift with each gameplay. Within those locations are different items that you need to fix the car. In some cases it's 2. For example, you need a ladder to get to the battery to get in the tree of the car that has been thrown by Sirenhead. So that seems simple, except for this statement right here, that your stamina does not recharge. I don't quite know how that happens. Does this guy have the worst asthma ever? He had a lot more issues than the giant monster coming to kill him. He should go talk to his doctor about why his stamina never recharges. Anyway, the overall crux of the gameplay is just about getting the items that you need to fix the car. This would be simple enough except for the fact that you only have the limited amount of stamina, which basically means every time you get a new item, you have less stamina that you just got from running from Sirenhead. And since you don't know where all the items are located, since the secret locations shift every time, it's basically like having to dive underwater every time to get the items. You only have a limited amount of air, and Sirenhead will only chase you back to the garage. So basically coming back to the garage is like coming up for water, except for the fact that your lungs don't refill. Aside from having to deal with this guy's weird lung disease, dealing with Sirenhead is a bit easier. The screen just goes into some tunnel vision and blurs when he's nearby, so you can just use the size of your tunnel vision to decide how close he is and whether or not you should sprint. What really makes Retribution shine is its ability to tell a story. Hidden inside this horror game is a bit of a walking simulator. Much like games like Gone Home, you find small scraps of Dan and Riley, the 2 rangers you came to assist's previous life. The little scraps of paper you find talk about Riley's quest to destroy Sirenhead, and also little tidbits of their relationship. Sometimes they seem like enemies, sometimes they seem like lovers, sometimes they seem like best friends. But at the end of the day, what makes it impressive is that they always seem to feel like real people. Also, the story of Riley's Retribution quest provides so many interesting questions. Was there more than one Sirenhead out there? Did he figure out its weakness? Did he kill it? We'll never quite know.
But somewhere out there, something is watching us.
Right on, Cartoon Fox. Overall, it's about the story. The gameplay has its quirks here and there. While I make fun of the stamina never recharging, it works. It would be too easy without it. But this game, it's really about the depth of character it creates. The number 1 spot I gave to Sirenhead Stranded, and on the surface it might be hard to see why. It seems to follow the tick boxes of every other game. The flashlight doesn't really do anything, the car is broken down, and you have to go through the wilderness dodging Sirenhead while you look for car parts. What I like about Stranded is its use of a quest line system where it gives you tasks and then just checks them off, as similar to any open world game, either Fallout or The Witcher or anything of the like, which really helps you in the grander scheme of things. Also, if you get lost for a period of too long and you survive for that period, it will give you a quest marker. That's not enough. The game does offer you a small static map, but you will have to look for your own landmarks. But that brings me to one of the most interesting concepts of this game, is the fact that you can't trust landmarks because Sirenhead can shapeshift in this game. Aside from his abilities, I think the presentation of him is amazing. He's monstrous, he's tall, his sirens move as he walks. It's just a scary freaking beast in this game. Aside from Sirenhead himself, I think Stranded uses details in a perfect form. In this room, you can see there's a huge hole in the ceiling, which just seems like a meaningless plot point, but it does come into play later, as if you're not careful enough while exploring this room and picking up all the items you need, you will share the same fate as the body that lies in the corner. The game also is host to several cutscenes, which is unique for this genre. It really adds something to the experience. It gives it a very polished feel. Another cool choice by the developers was to use pre-television radio play characters as the sound of Sirenhead's voice.
Lurks in the hearts of men.
It calls for many minutes together, in an agonized way. It rings.
Standing soundtrack aside, the game feels like it has some missed opportunities in gameplay. You recharge your flashlight by pumping it manually with your hand, which can alert Sirenhead. The only problem with this is the fact that there's not enough areas in the game that are dark to really make this meaningful. One nice feature though is the fact that you can hold your breath when Sirenhead is on top of you to lose him. It makes a big point of him not being able to see and needing to use his echolocation, and it adds a nice feature to the gameplay. Setting is also a high point for this game. Each location feels very unique from the other parts of the town. I love the creepiness in this moonlit trailer park. The game also tries to take a page from the old Retribution playbook by having small stories that you can seek out around the map. This tale of a trailer park romance gone wrong isn't at all as interesting as our two ill-fated rangers. So while I like the LLyr edition, it's definitely not as satisfying. What makes Stranded the best at the end of this journey? For me, I just keep coming back to the word polish. It feels smooth. I love the fact that it has a simple but complete feeling questline system. I love how epic the cutscenes are. I love that the gameplay works in every aspect. I love the presentation of the beast. It just feels like a AAA game. While I do have some minor grumps about how the flashlight mechanic was not utilized properly, and even the questline system sometimes makes the game a little too easy between save points, this is still the best version of the monster in any video game on the internet. The way he moves, the way the echolocation actually plays into the story, the way his bones crack in the distance as he shapeshifts, it's just an amazing experience as far as experiencing the beast in a video game goes. Thanks so much for watching the countdown. If you can, try to look up these developers and throw them some love on either itch.io or Steam. And if there's any other games you'd like to see me do, or any Sirenhead games that you think I've missed, leave them in the comments. I'll see what I can do. And I really appreciate you taking the time. And if you're on the web today, throw around some kindness, because we all know the world could use a little, especially on the interwebs. Thanks again, people.